All right, guys, we're back and we got a ton of cool stuff to talk about this episode. Nitron suspension is on the car. Let's have a look to see how I did with the install. We selected a 450K, and that was a recommendation for spring rate from Nitron. And they basically told me that for a really good street car and not something that you're going to be tracking all the time, the 450K was perfect for their application. While we were in there, in my opinion, it's essential to do the supporting mods to the suspension. You're going to definitely want to upgrade the compliance bushings. All of the ball joints were done. We did the tie rods. Just went through and kind of did like a 90% suspension overhaul. We want to get it as back to new as possible, especially for these new Nitron coilovers to be able to perform at their utmost. At the same time, I actually had my buddy David, aka Mr. Sexy S2K. His services are to come in and give me a lot more tire potential here. What he does is he basically cuts and rolls, and he makes this lip as minimal as possible. That way the tire has the most amount of room. So the Toyo tires that we selected to use are much wider, and they'll be way better for performance. Also, yesterday we had my buddy Jay come in, and Jay did a really cool laser and string alignment on the car. It's all like a race setup. He came mobile to the shop. He did that alignment for me. The car didn't even have to leave the rack, so that was really nice. As you guys noticed, the headlights are missing. I was gonna try to restore them myself, but I reached out to some friends, and my buddy at Rhapsody Detailing, right down the street, he's literally 3 minutes away, he mentioned, hey, you know, I do a lot of wraps, and sometimes we just wrap headlights. I was like, oh, thinking about it, I'm like, that's a pretty cool idea, because you need to do something. You either have to have it professionally cleared with automotive clear, or you could wrap it. So he said, listen, I'm a detailer, let me just handle it for you. He's gonna do wet sand, dry sand, polishing, compound, get them clear, then he's going to wrap it, and then he's gonna ceramic coat over the wrap. So I think that'll work really well. I wanna give it a try. I've never done that before. That's where the headlights are, and hopefully by next video we have some nice shiny headlights. Rhapsody Detailing right down the street. Thank you. I got new tires and wheels, and I need to show you guys, so let's get those on the car. All right, so I could tell that I'm a little bit on the lift still, and it's gonna come down another like fingers gap. The homies Aaron and Eddie from Titan 7 hooked me up with these wheels, forged wheels, made specifically for an S2000, but in a more aggressive stance. Also, Toyo Tires hooked me up with these R888Rs. These are 255 4017s, and they're going to be a perfect fitment for this S2000 build. So before I actually show you guys the engine running, I have to explain some things. So story time, ready? This is not a straightforward swap, and it's direct injection. And that's probably one of the biggest hurdles, is that it's DI, and it has port injectors. So it has 8 injectors total. It has a high pressure pump. It has low pressure injectors. It's got a whole gang of sensors. It has a actuator on the turbo. So there's like 5 wires just like wired to the turbo. These are a lot of things that are modern and super cool, and you can do awesome things with tuning, but all these sensors need to be calibrated, and they need their own data for every single thing. That every pin that we wire to the computer has to be set up on the back end. And we're using a Motec M1 for the controller. My buddy Andrew Molina, he's actually a big time Hall Tech guy. But he's like, you know what, I kind of want to learn a little bit more of the Motec, and he wanted to be a part of it. So what he did is he remoted in with me, and we were able to basically bounce ideas and figure out the calibration for all these sensors and scale them properly. And it uses math to essentially figure out how much timing and fueling and all these things based on just the numbers that you give it. It gives you a VE map, volumetric efficiency, to actually get this engine running. There's no base map for this engine, meaning I didn't just call Motec or call my tuner and say, hey, can you send me a file to just start this thing up? But it was only about a day because, one, all the wires were in the right spot, because that's what we do for a living. And then Andrew was able to use all of his knowledge from doing some Motec stuff, but also just doing engine mapping. Between the two of us, we were able to get this engine to start pretty seamlessly. Unfortunately, can't fire it up for you guys right now, and that is because I sent the ECU like an overnight mail back to Motec. My fuel pump wasn't coming on. I was like, fair enough, you know, well, we could always just jump the pump relay to just test it later. So what I did was I just pulled 2 pins out, flipped them around. The fan and the fuel were right next to each other for the drivers inside the ECU. I flipped them, we went back in, we changed it, fuel pump worked, fan didn't work. This is our crimper. And I'm gonna show you guys, one of the things I had to make was, that just wasn't available for me, was this fitting right here. And what I basically needed was a high pressure in a reduced barrier number 8, and that wasn't available. So what I ended up doing was I actually bought this fitting and then bought this fitting and drilled a small hole and then made a brazing weld around it. So I just did that here at the shop, and it's not the greatest braze, so I don't 100% trust this, but for now I feel like it's gonna I'm gonna try to roll with it, so we'll see what happens. But I wanted to jump into some of the AC stuff because you guys have been like super asking me questions about it, and I know that air conditioning is something that a lot of people like don't understand and also want to customize themselves but don't have the means and understanding on how to do that. And I'm going to explain the system, exactly how it's routed, to kind of give you guys a little bit more of an understanding on what I did in my car, and maybe you could implement some of those over to your own car. All right, so we're doing reduced barrier hose on this. So this would be a number 8 reduced barrier, and what that means is the actual outer diameter of the hose is smaller than typical. The drawback to it is that it would be a little easier to damage because the thickness of the actual hose is thinner, so it's easier to damage. Factory, they use standard barrier hose, and it's about twice as thick as it needs to be just for like to make it last a really long time. But I don't have a lot of real estate in my engine bay, so I wanted to go with a smaller hose. Typically I'd like to build this on the bench. This is gonna be quite awkward to do, but let's just get it done real quick. These jaws, we'll just crimp this hose. Good hand strength. Okay. All right, so the crimp looks good. Happy enough with that. I don't see that leaking. Now we just gotta route it. All right, so I wanna take a minute and I wanna explain exactly what I did and what's factory already in the car, so you guys can really get a grasp of how this electric AC is hopefully going to work. First things first, there's a billet adapter right here, okay? That billet adapter was actually made by my buddies over at Belade Sports. What that does is it takes the factory opening, it turns it into a number 8 fitting here on my low pressure side. I added a low pressure fitting brazed into it. So this is a service fitting for filling and unfilling the system. So for the sake of simplicity, let's go ahead and talk about how this high pressure comes out of the firewall on this number 6 hose. So it's a 45 number 6, and then it has high pressure fitting already built onto it, so I did not have to solder braze this one. And I went ahead and I crimped the hose, and that hose runs along here. You can see it right here. It drops down behind the headlight. It's nice that the headlights are removed because we could see a lot right now. I put some of this little rubber coating over it so it wouldn't chafe. And then it goes into this dryer right here. So this dryer has a factory pressure switch. It is a factory S2000 dryer, All I literally did was relocate this from the center of the car to over here. So this line comes into the dryer, it goes out the dryer as a number 6 through another billet adapter, through another adapter, so it goes into the condenser here, it goes through the condenser, pops out up here, and now that's in number 8. So the number 8 kind of 120 degree swoops down here to this 90 into the actual electronic compressor. I'll just talk plumbing right now. So we're coming out of the compressor, and then it's going to go through this adapter to this low profile line. I did a low profile 90 here because the bumper is about there. So I really only have like maybe an inch and a half. So it was nice to have this low profile 90 so I could make up some of that space, because I think I saved myself a solid inch. And then this is a reduced barrier number 8. Typically you'd upgrade this to a number 10, but Blade's fitting into the firewall was a number 8. So I just kept it number 8. It goes under the intercooler, under here. It comes back up and it goes to that fitting that I had brazed my low pressure service check on. So that's basically how the plumbing is done on the car. The next thing I want to talk about is this compressor. It's kind of complicated. You guys might be asking, why is the compressor right here? This is electronic. I didn't have any space for the compressor on the K20C. So I kind of like, if you guys have been watching my videos, you'll know that it's kind of like an ongoing thing. I'm like, what am I going to do about AC? I really want AC. This is the solution that I had made. So this is electric. It has a controller board here, 12 volt relay here, because when I powered this guy on, it shot a little green LED showing that it was on. That was like a red flag to me that it's probably going to draw a bit and it should probably be shut off. If you're not driving the car like every day, for example, it might be like always decharging the battery steadily, and I wanted to know it was going to be off. So I added a 75 amp relay right here. Should be enough. I made this CAD plate. So what I did was I just took all the dimensions of everything, went on Send Cut Send, and I ordered 2 of these. So that was a simple CAD drawing. Send Cut Send got it to me in a few days, and I just made this backing plate because this is a heavy unit. So this plate needs to be very solid mounted, and it's solid mounted to the frame right here. I then had a piece of kind of like scrap material from old Send Cut Send purchase, and also this little L bracket. It's kind of hood fab for sure. It's not really like the best, but I just wanted to give it one more point of stabilization, so it was nice and supported, because this is, it's going to be bouncing, and I didn't want to have it cantilevered and hanging without much weight on it with just 2 bolts. It also gave me a spot to throw that relay, and this whole thing is pretty much powered off of the old air pump that used to live in this car. This was the air pump, and this is already a fuse in the fuse box on the driver's side, 75 amp fuse ready to go. So I just wired it in there. This unit also is kind of interesting because it runs off of a trigger of 6 volts. So I had to use a little resistor, and I took 12 volt switch, and then I have it go through the resistor, and then now it's outputting 6 volts, and 6 volts is to switch this guy on. And then that circuit board, it gets power and ground, and then it also gets a fan. So the AC fan is actually wired to this board. My battery, negative and positive, are wired into this board. My switch wire, and then also another ground that I supplied, is all wired into this board. And then these 3-phase cables come off, and they're actually being controlled, and then they're controlling this compressor. If you guys are interested in purchasing compressor, crimper, any of the items that I used in this AC video, then definitely check out my link below in my description, and maybe you guys could pick up some of those products. Also, I want to shout out Titan 7 and also Toyo Tires for supplying the contact patch for my car. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.